Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. Today we are going to start our lecture number 8 on the unit number 1, which is the physical quantities and the measurement. And today's lecture is about the measuring instrument, and most particularly we will discuss screw gauge today. First of all, starting lecture with some quotation with some ayat, and for today it is वाइला रब्बी का फ़रग़ब, तर्जुमा और अपने परवरदिगार ही की तरफ दिल लगा. Start the lecture, and the learning objectives for this lecture will be, first of all, for the measurement of the length, we have already seen that we can use the ruler, we can use the measuring tape, we can also use the vernier caliper. But if we need to measure the length or the diameter of the object whose length is less than 1 centimeter, so for that purpose we cannot use the vernier caliper to get the more accurate result. So for that case we use the screw gauge. And in this lecture you will learn about the least count of a screw gauge and also how the screw gauge works. So we will discuss its working, and at the end we will discuss the zero error and the zero corrections in the screw gauge. Okay students, now let's discuss about the screw gauge. Screw gauge is a device which is used to measure the small lengths with a greater accuracy as compared to the vernier caliper. It is also named as the micrometer screw gauge. The screw gauge consists of the two scales. One is named as the main scale, which is drawn on the sleeve of the screw gauge, and it also contains the rotating vernier scale, which is also named as the circular scale, which is drawn on its thimble. Screw gauge consists of the metallic U-shaped frame with the stud at its one end. It also contains the spindle, with the help of which we can hold the object between the stud and spindle inside the screw gauge. It consists of the sleeve, which is also named as the hollow cylinder on which the main scale or the index line is drawn, and also it contains the thimble, which is the circular scale of the screw gauge, and as the thimble completes its one rotation, the spindle moves 1 millimeter along the index line, and it is just because the distance between the consecutive threads on the spindle is 1 millimeter, and this distance is also named as the pitch of the screw gauge on the spindle. Now let's discuss about the least count of the screw gauge, like how we can measure the smallest distance measured by this instrument. So the smallest distance that can be measured with the help of the screw gauge is known as its least count, and since we know the thimble consists the 100 divisions around its one end, and it is the circular scale of the screw gauge. So as the thimble completes its one rotation, it means 100 divisions are going to pass this index line. and the thimble moves 1 millimeter along the main scale in one complete rotation. So thus each division of the circular scale crossing this index line moves the thimble through 1 by 100 millimeter, or we can also say that each division of the circular scale moves the thimble through 0.01 millimeter on the main scale. We can also write down the formula for calculating the least count as the least count is equals to the pitch of the screw gauge divided by the number of divisions on the circular scale. Since the pitch of the screw gauge is the horizontal distance covered when the thimble moves when the thimble completes its one rotation, and it is equals to 1 millimeter, and the number of divisions on the circular scale in this case is 100. So we get the least count as 0.01 millimeter, and since 1 millimeter is equals to 1 by 10th of the centimeter, so this least count is equals to 0.01 centimeter, which is small as compared to the least count of the vernier caliper. So girls, do you remember what is the least count of the vernier caliper? Yes, the least count of the vernier caliper was 0.01 centimeter, and the least count of the screw gauge is 0.001 centimeter. So we get the accuracy up till the third decimal point by using the screw gauge. Now let's see step by step instructions on how to use a screw gauge. For that purpose, first step is to close the gap between the spindle and the stud of the screw gauge by turning the ratchet in the clockwise direction, having the object between the stud and the spindle, and the stud is also named as the anvil. Now the second step is to read the main scale reading at the edge of the thimble, and in this case the main scale reading is 8.5. Now let's see how we can get this reading. First of all, if you look at this zoom image of the main scale, you can see there are two divisions given on the main scale. First of all, there are the lines given above the index line which is equal to, in which one line is equals to 1 millimeter, and also there are half millimeter lines given on the scale. So the total division which we can read on the main scale will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And also we can see half division after 8. So we can read it as 8.5. So the main scale reading is 8.5. Now the third step is to read the circular scale reading on the thimble scale or the circular scale. In this case, the 40th division coincides with the index line of the main scale. So the circular scale reading will be the 40th division multiplied by the least count of the screw gauge, which is 0.01 millimeter. So the thimble scale reading or the circular scale reading of the screw gauge will be equals to 0.40 millimeter. And the fourth step is to find out the total diameter of the object, and it is find out by adding the main scale reading to the thimble scale reading. Since the main scale reading was 8.5 millimeter, which is added to the thimble reading, which is 0.40 millimeter. So the total reading of the object, the total diameter of the object will be equals to 8.90 millimeter. Okay girls, now we will see about the error, the zero error, and how we can correct that error. Since we all know in instruments there is some sort of error present naturally or by the systematic error. So first of all, there are the three types of error. Either there could be no zero error, or the error could be positive, or the error could be negative. Now, what do we mean by the three terms? First of all, the error will be zero if the zero of the main scale coincides with the zero of the circular scale when the gap between the spindle and the stud is 0, or when we close the gap between the spindle and the stud. So in this case the error will be 0. But in case if the index, the 0 of the circular scale is behind the index line of the main scale, then in this case the 0 error will be positive. And in case when the 0 of the circular scale has crossed the index line above, then the error will be considered to be negative. Now we will see in detail how to calculate the zero error if it is present in the instrument, and then how to make correction in our video. So first of all, in case when the zero mark on the thimble scale coincides with the main scale reading or the index line, then in that case there will be no zero error. So the observed reading and the actual reading will be equal. And in this case, the observed reading is 2 of the main scale, and 25th division coincides with the index line. So the circular scale reading is 0.25 millimeter after multiplying it by the least count of the screw gauge. So when we add the main scale reading with the circular scale reading, we will get the observed reading, which is 2.25 millimeter. So the actual reading will be equals to the observed reading, and since it does not have any zero error, so our answer will remain the same. But in case if we close the gap between the stud and anvil without the presence of any object, and the zero of the circular scale is present below the index line, then in this case the error will be positive. Now how we can read this error? We will count the number of lines which the division which coincides with the zero or the index line of the main scale, and in this case the 7th division coincides with the main scale reading. So our error in this case, after multiplying it with the least count of the vernier caliper, is equals to be 0.07 millimeter. So the error is positive, and this error will be subtracted from the observed reading. And the observed reading in this case is main scale reading is 2 and the vernier scale reading is 0.32, since 32 division is going to be coincided with the index line. So we will subtract 0.07 from 2.32 and our answer will be equals to 2.25 millimeter again. And the third and the last case, if the zero of the main scale is above the zero of the index line, In this case, the error will be considered to be negative, and the number of lines to reach the zero will be considered to be the division which is multiplied to be with the least count to get the zero error. So since in this case only two divisions has been passed, so the division below the 0 will be counted as 1 and 2, so that 2 will be multiplied with the least count of the screw gauge and it comes out to be 0.02 error with the negative sign. And in this case, the reading of the screw gauge comes out to be 2 main scale reading, and 23rd division is coinciding with the index line, so it comes out to be 0.23 after multiplying it with the least count. So the total reading, observed reading, will be 2.23, and when we subtract this negative error from the actual reading, from the observed reading, the actual reading will comes out to be 2.25 millimeter. So our actual reading is same in all the three cases, but the difference is if there is no error in the instrument, then the observed and the actual reading will be equal. In case when there is positive zero error, then we have to subtract that error from the observed reading. And in case if the error is negative, then we have to add that error in the observed reading to get the actual reading. Now girls, it's the time for the homework, and your today's homework is question number 1, which is what is the least count of the screw gauge? Question number 2, which one of the two instruments is more precise and why? Number 1 is the vernier calipers and the second one is the screw gauge. And third and the last question is the numerical problem number 1.7 from your course book, which is given on the page number 27. Thank you for listening the lecture. For any kind of queries, you can write your questions in the comment section below. That's all for today. See you in the next lecture. Till then, take good care of yourself and Allah Hafiz.